So good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm Marianne.
And I'm Alison. And here is the
And
news.
here's the news. So welcome to the special COVID edition. Today, our specialists are going to talk from their home. The edition is focused on olfactory imagery, a complex mechanism that virtually re-experiences the past for vividly, places and products with strong olfactory attributes. So the first person who's going to talk is Alexis. He's going to conduct the first study, which demonstrates that imagining a food odor while looking at an ad will increase salivations and the aim to consume. So hello, Alexis.
That's right. Thank you so much, Marine, for introducing me, and thank you guys for having me here today. So, as you mentioned, my study is about imagined scent and salivation. So the goal of the study is to actually know if consumers, they salivate more while imagining the scent of the advertised product or food. So a little bit about the design and the methods. So we had 59 participants, and they were all shown an advertisement with 4 chocolate chip cookies and a tagline which said, "Fancy a freshly baked cookie." And all participants had to imagine the scent, half of the participants, sorry, had to imagine the scent of the cookies. And saliva had to be measured twice, so before and during exposure. Yeah. So the procedure, all 59 participants were told that their memory for product information would be tested as a cover story for a study, for another study. And that saliva had to be measured. So they're not so surprised when they're actually told that the saliva has to be measured. So the instruction were for the imagined scent group to look at the picture and imagine the scent for 2 minutes. And the instruction for the other group, so half of the participants were just told to look at the picture for 2 minutes without imagining the scent of it. And at the end of the procedure, all cotton pads would have to be placed in the plastic bags, in the provided plastic bags. So participants then had to write what they thought the study was about. And actually, a funny part is that nobody guessed the right answer to that. So the saliva extraction method that we used is called the Strongen-INSEEC dental procedure. So every participant were given 3 cotton dental rolls, and they had to place 2 between the lower gums and the cheeks and 1 under the tongue. And saliva was then collected for 3 minutes in each collection phases. So the desire to eat cookies was also measured in support of the cover story, with the covariance for mood, hunger, cookie liking, and also dietary status. And as results, what was striking actually was that we saw an increase in salivation for the group who imagined the scent compared to the group who didn't. And also another significant result was for the covariance cookie liking. So people who said they liked cookies prior to the study actually salivated more than people who didn't mention they liked cookies. And also, last but not least, salivation change was also related to hunger. And that's it for my part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's move to Arsharan. She will show the importance between visual imagery and olfactory imagery in 2 steps. Hello, Arsharan.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. So I'm going to talk about the imaginary scent, but more important about the visual impact that this is very important. So we have the opportunity to test the hypothesis. So, well, the imaginary smells will only have an impact on salivations when people are exposed to a visual representation so of the olfactory referent. It means that the image um, emits a smell, whereas the real smell will increase salivation independently of the visual input. There will thus be several observations, like the olfactory observations and the visual observation. And there is a very interactive of the two inputs. So I will give you a very simple example. Like, we often believed that the smell of a food product will not increase salivation, but when the consumer does not see an image of the food. Well, for this, we created an advertisement with the picture and without the picture of a chocolate cake. And the slogan, "You can feel like a chocolate cake." So this ad was shown to 142 students. And so the study was conducted in two steps. So first, the ad was shown to the students with the picture and then without the picture. So, and they have to imagine the smell via this ad. And then in a second step, for the real olfactory control, perfume sachets, a little bag, were prepared, made by crushed cake, and then attached to a printed advertisement to stimulate the rubbing and the sniffing panels found in certain ads. So in order to not alert the students and to be private, we did not mention the real reason for the study. So saliva was measured before and after of the stimulus. So at the end of the test, we have some different reaction, we have different moods, we have like the opinions of each student. So some students said they talk about the mood, they talk about the hunger, they talk about the cook and the food and status. But so far, only 10 students on the 142 mentioned terms related to salivations like appetite, saliva, salivations. So as a result, an ANCOVA test was conducted with a change in salivation level. So in addition, we observed that there are significant main effects for both odor and image, and also a significant interaction. As it can be seen, there is interaction between the image and the olfactory condition. We find that when there is no visual input, the consumer like see no image, only the presence of a real smell is able to significantly increase the salivation. But when we just ask people to smell the cake, there is no real significant effect on salivation. However, the image is present, both real and imaginary smells increase salivation. So as all the results, like in the hypothesis one, and it show again and again that the real odors increase salivation even if there is a visual input or not. So asking people to imagine the smell of an appetizing food product will not increase salivation unless the consumer also sees an image of food product. So like one line of conclusion, like if you really need to know, that is if we can see that the effect of imagined smells on salivation depends on exposure to visual images. That's for me.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Arsharan and Alexis. Thank you for your studies. So we will move to Roxana. So Roxana will talk about the link between olfactory and visual imagery by using food consumption as a measure. So Roxana, how are you? Can you talk about your study?
Yes, thank you, Alison, for your introduction. So I made the study with my team, which focuses on the interaction of the image and smell of food to measure the increase in consumption. Unlike previous studies, which were not based on increased consumption but increased salivation. So to do this, we carried out the experiment on 226 participants from two universities over 14 days. We presented this test to them as an evaluation of a product soon to be available on distribution. We don't told them the real reason to not distort their reactions and the results. All the 226 people were given an advertisement for chocolate chip cookies, and we invited them to taste them. Then we made them smell a bag containing cookies scrums. And finally, we gave them an airtight bag containing 2 cookies that they could eat in full or not if they wished. We also asked them about their diets, like what was their last food, when it was, if they was on a diet or not, and also if they liked cookies or not. The results of these studies showed that adding the smell to the food advertisements increased the consumption of the product. However, we noticed that the visual impact was still greater than the olfactory impact, because the tests showed us that consumption of the product with the image without the smell was greater than consumption with the smell but without image. Moreover, consumption with the smell coupled with the image is not significantly higher than the consumption with the image alone. Finally, sorry, consumption is higher when there's only the image than when there's only the smell. So to conclude, the results of the study show us that the behavior of our consumers regarding consumption depends very little on the presentation of the product sense, whether real or imagined. However, the impact of the imagined or real image is stronger on the level of consumption of the product, regardless of the panel's diets.
Thank you, Roxana. Okay, so next let's move to Redouane. Are you here? Hello,
Yes.
Redouane?
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and you?
How are you?
Good, and you?
Really good, thank you. So your study case will be on how an image can create salivation to a consumer based on the food picture. So can you tell us maybe more about this?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for having me first on your show. Thank you, Alison and Marine. And in addition to all these studies, we needed an additional evidence to for the interactive effects of the olfactory and visual sensory research. So we did ask to multiple subjects, which were 170 students of the University of Michigan, and they were provided with the actual scent of chocolate chip cookies. So they saw a picture of chocolate chip cookies in the print ad or not. It was the same picture that Alexis used on his study. And we measure individually differences in visual imagery with the QMI vision scale. So the QMI vision scale is a common measure to use to assess an individual's chronic capacity to engage visual imagery. And the goal is the effect of picture presence on the desire to eat varies as a function of chronic visual imagery ability. And for my method, as I said, we did ask to 170 students, and they all received a Ziploc bag, from which they removed a small piece of blotter paper, and they were instructed to hold the paper 1 inch from the nose, and they needed to take 3 sniffs. All the participants were asked to report their desire to eat the advertised cookies, and then the students had to write down what they thought the odor was, and then the participants viewed the prints for the chocolate chip cookies. So we made with the results graphic. So in the graphic, you have the student that had no scent and no picture. You have the student that had no scent and an imaginary picture, and then you had the students that had no scent but the picture, and you have the imagined scent, and then you have the student that had the scent, and so you had the student with the scent and the picture that consumed 22.2 grams of cookies, and then you had the student with no scent and no picture that only consumed 7.2 grams of cookies. And then after that, we asked the participant to write down what they thought the purpose of the study was, and none mentioned anything related to salivation, and as this measure was not used in this study. So for the results, we decided to do a picture condition, which was represented with a dummy variable like the sticks on a graphic. And the spotlight analysis reveals that the presence of a picture while smelling the odor of chocolate chip cookies increased the desire to eat the cookies only for poor to average visual imagers. So to conclude, we can say that seeing versus not seeing the picture of the advertised food after smelling its odor increase the desire to eat. And apparently the odor is sufficient to generate a clear and vivid mental representation of the odor referent. And I can say that the interplay of odors and picture demonstrated in this study showed that adding a picture in the presence of an actual odor, food odor, increase the desire to eat among only low visual imagers. So that's it for my study.
Okay, thank you
very
then.
much. Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
So just to let you know that our experts conducted this study in order to help marketers improve their way to communicate with their target markets. So the customers are at the center of this study. And now, Alison, I have a few questions for you.
How strong is the desire to eat while smelling food?
It seems like it's different when you listen to all of our studies, because in mine we saw that smelling has not a strong impact in the consumption.
Yeah.
But we saw that, like in Alexis and Arsharan's studies, that it had one. But as we saw, their studies was about salivating, and mine was about consumption. So I think that smelling has an impact, yes, on the salivation, but the fact that you salivate will not force you to buy the product.
Exactly. That's what I would like to say regarding this study too. Like Roxana, I think that it can have an impact of the salivation, but regarding the consumption of the cookies, we saw, me and Roxana, that it didn't have really a stronger impact on the consumption. Like for my
The
study,
image has a stronger impact on the
yes,
consumption.
exactly.
Do you think that sometimes consumers can be not betrayed, but they can be lead to a certain direction or way from
Well,
the marketers?
well,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, the human brain can registers like an insane amount of smells of others, actually smells others. And a fact is that we actually tend to buy more when we feel nostalgic or when it brings up
Yes.
a good memory or just a memory from childhood, from a good moment, from whatever. And this really, I mean, marketers definitely use this as a technique to get more sales at the end of the day. So, I mean, it's a marketing technique. So yes, of course, they try to get more fish in their nets by using this olfactory marketing. Definitely.
Wow.
It can
Okay.
change the balance between buying or not buying.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
totally.
And we
Totally.
all agree on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So thank you very much and see you next time.
Thank you
Bye.
so much
For
for having
inviting
us.
Bye.
us.
Thank you
Bye.
very
Thank
much.
you.